Hey guys, Cody with CJC Off-Road. Today we're introducing a brand new product to you guys. For a long time we've gotten requests on how to protect your investment with your high dollar shocks, how to make sure they look good for as long as possible. For instance, the King 2.5s use a steel body, which is excellent for cooling, not so good in the harsher climates, salt road, just pitting from rocks and things like on the road. So today we're introducing our CNC cut shock wrap kits. So we're using an XPEL product, which is one of the top protection films in the industry. It is, again, going to be a precision cut kit. When you go to our website, you're going to see your shock package listed. You'll simply purchase it. And today I'm going to show you kind of how the installation process works. We're also going to have a written guide, but usually being able to see it in video form with a small explanation usually goes a long way. So we're going to dive on into this. So step one, we're going to use isopropyl alcohol, and that's going to be just to clean the shock. We don't know what was in the packaging, whose hands touched this last, so with a little bit of cleaning, that'll help with the adhesion process with the wrap. So every kit's going to be labeled with your front and rear shocks. This is the rear shock for a Ram 2500 system. So we're going to have both the King part number, which is going to be a unique part number, won't make sense to anyone. However, it will match a brand new shock out of the bag, and it'll have the exact matching number on our piece, and it'll also just say front and rear. So you're going to get 2 pieces per shock. One will be for the shock body and one's going to be for the reservoir. So we're going to go ahead and start with the shock body. So one thing to note, making sure your hands are clean, right? You don't want to do this with black thumbprints all inside the shock. So the setup spray you're going to use, and that's going to allow you to really position this where you want it, peel it back off if you need to, make corrections, etc. That is going to be a mix of water and baby soap. So we're going to go ahead and spray that on both the wrap as well as the shock. And again, that's just going to allow us a lot of forgiveness, right? We've all tried putting stickers on the back of the truck. I know I can't put one square on the back of the truck for the life of me. This is going to allow you to peel it off, make corrections, and go from there. Now, one thing to note, when you do peel this off and do make corrections, don't stretch the material. Hold it firmly, but don't pull. You'll really see it stretch. That's going to cause it to lay down crooked from there on. So we're going to start here. We're going to go to the top of the shock. Now you pretty much, again, I can't put a sticker on my truck to save my life, so we'll see how this goes. You're going to just try to line it up with the top of the shock body and start to wrap it around. If it stays, primarily flush with the cap on this shock, we know that we did it correctly, right? That it's going to go all the way around, in a pretty flat manner. If you're doing this and it's going up or it's going down, simply roll it back, like you'll probably see me do 1,200 times here, and that's going to allow you to reposition it and get it, sitting pretty flush. But as you can see right here, I actually did an okay job. So I was pretty sloppy and did not actually pay attention to the fact that you're going to have a seam here. On this shock, it's going to work just fine because we're going to hide the seam behind the reservoir. Aesthetically, you can place it wherever you want. Depending on the model of your shock, like the front shocks that come with this, there's actually going to be a notch for the reservoir, so the seam is going to be predetermined by our cutout. However, in this rear shock, you can position it however you want. I chose to put it right behind the reservoir. However, you could put it to like the inside of your chassis so you can't see it from the outside, etc. So basically, we're going to start at the most center point as we can. Make sure there's no air bubbles. From there, we're going to want to try to squeegee it out. Now, this shock body has, some fairly aggressive machine marks in it, so you're going to want to go perpendicular to the shock body, working up and down. You're going to be fighting these channels where the solution and the sticker in the air are fighting each other. But with this, we're able to just work it sideways, and that's going to be of advantage for what we're doing. So you will need to put a little bit of pressure on it. We have this just in the basic vise setup with a set of Amazon soft jaws. We'll list in the instructions what we're using, not necessarily a brand because it's probably all cheap imported stuff that's on Amazon Prime, but it's something simple and kind of a handy tool to have around the house as well. So when we do hit these seams and these kind of more flexible points, if you do find that you're messing up, we do include a 1/4 inch strip of extra material for each pair of shocks. Actually, I think each shock. And what that's going to do is say you're a little off on the top, you're a little off on the bottom, you got to cut something with a knife. That's going to allow you to kind of fill in where you messed up. And basically we did that because as we all found out in doing this, some of us were pretty good at applying stickers and others of us weren't very good. So I actually managed to pull that off. We don't have a high side on here at all, so pretty excited there. And bam, that's this side of the shock. So then we're gonna work to the other side. Looks like we've done pretty good on air bubbles. This is going better than my other test runs. So as with anything, I'm sure you'll develop your own technique 1 or 2 shocks in. So the last 2 will probably be the easy ones. The first 2 might be a little more frustrating. This material is pretty forgiving. And again, when set up with the soapy water, you actually have a ton of grace when putting these together. So you'll probably figure it out pretty quickly. Now hitting the seam on these is a little more difficult, as you do have to worry about that reservoir on some of the front shocks and things like that. You're strictly just rounding the turn with a square piece of material, so it's a little bit easier. Again, if you do have one with a built-in reservoir hose notch, you're setting up there and just wrapping around. So if someone who's never, again, put a sticker on straight, nor have I ever wrapped a single panel, this is my number 3 attempt at doing this, and I'd say it's pretty easy. Moving on to the reservoir, same program. Get it nice and wet so we don't have to worry about correcting any of our mistakes. Same thing goes for this piece. Obviously this is a slightly messy project, so probably don't do it in the living room. Again, having the vise helps, but actually some of our first test runs were just done by 2 of us in the office holding these together. One person holding up the shock along a box, and then the other person applying the wrap. I'd say I'm pretty darn close right there, so I'll go ahead and start to work out these bubbles. So similar principle, we're going to go ahead and place the seam inside so that way you can't really see it unless you're looking up close. And again, keeping this wet allows it to not stick to the shock body, and just work our way all the way in there. From there, we'll go to the other side, work it in the same thing. Fortunately, I'm overhanging just slightly on this side, but I don't think it'll be too big of a deal. Again, if you do find yourself to be way off, we do have those kind of cleanup strips that once it dries, you can't really see that they're there. All right, so if you're looking on our website and you are seeing, do I have the thread-on cap or the built-in pin top section? This is a mid-2022 change that Carly and King is making. This is what we're calling the thread-on shock cap. Previously, the stem top portion of the shock was built on. It was like a welded portion of the body. So just for a little bit of clarification, when you get the shock wrap and you select it for the thread-on cap, you will no longer see the U-shaped notch for the reservoir fitting. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this front shock for the 3 1/4 inch newer Ram systems. So again, we're gonna start with the isopropyl alcohol. Quickly wipe off the shock, and again, that's just gonna remove any gunk that came on it in the packaging from King, because again, they aren't planning on this being a sticker grade finish, right? They're just trying to get these shocks out the door as quickly as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this system off. We'll do the same for the reservoir. And again, just standard isopropyl alcohol, Walmart, Target, online, wherever. All right, so we'll go ahead and soak the shock down again. Just water, baby soap. Again, can be pretty much purchased anywhere. I think even the grocery store would have these supplies. All right, so with this shock being a front shock, this will be the portion the reservoir is going to move over. So this is going to be what you'll see from the outside. So we'll go ahead and put this seam on the back side of the shock. That way when you're looking at it from any angle inside the wheel well, you won't see the seam. Again, not important to the functionality or anything like that. It's strictly an aesthetic thing, but if we're going to do it, we might as well note that. Again, if you're, if this is the driver's side shock, for you to do the passenger, it would kind of be the inverse operation. So we'll go ahead, peel this off. Again, it'll be marked for the front shock. From there, we will go ahead, soak it with the soapy water combination to give us as much flexibility as possible and cover up any mistakes I will most likely make. So this one is real easy because we can just butt it up to this top cap. It's essentially cheating with the shocks because you're no longer trying to line it up against the bottom or, you know, kind of make a floating alignment piece there. So we'll just go ahead. So like I said before, there's some slight grooves in the shock body, so you want to work the air bubbles and the water out sideways. Doing it up and down like I did doesn't quite work them out as well. So we'll start here. And it's almost easier to work it forward with your fingers on top of the squeegee. But your mileage may vary. Everyone's gonna have their own technique. If you get too big of an air bubble or it gets cockeyed, it's very easy. Just pull it back, use two hands so you're not stretching the material, and just peel it back, and that's gonna allow you to kind of start over. So you can see we just put a kink in it from it not being perfectly centered. So we'll do, peel it back. Again, obviously make sure everything is plenty wet. Because the top seems to be the off-center portion, we'll slowly work it down. So like I said, I have about a 1/16 of an inch of a gap at the top, so we're gonna go ahead and use one of these little filler pieces. Again, it's about a 1/4 inch strip. That's gonna allow you to wrap the complete diameter of the shock body. And, you know, again, this would just be kind of a perfectionist thing if you really wanted to make sure every little bit was covered. So what we'll do is we'll kind of start in the same section, make sure that, you know, it goes all the way around and the seams basically overlap. You have a little bit more flexibility with this because you're not trying to cover the whole shock body. And it's a lot more flexible, so we'll pull it all the way around. And bam, no more gap. Not a professional. This is number 4 for me, so not something I do all the time, but I don't find that it is terribly difficult. Take your time. Use all the proper materials and you'll be able to get this done in your garage no problem.